Patrick Pando. The best way to put who I am, I run sales teams across 13 time zones, multiple languages, across whole alphabet of solutions, ERP, CRM, SCM, AI, SaaS, and have done it for some of the leading companies in the world like Microsoft, SAP, Aviva, Schneider Electric, also some startups and scale-ups. What I really tell people I do, I teach dinosaurs how to dance to the new AI beat. Okay, so I work with legacy sales organizations and existing customers who are trying to change their business, really work with the sales teams and the solution sets to drive that digital transformation. And I know in the past or currently, I've worked with Herringbone specifically for that skill set we look for in people. We're looking for people who are able to drive the digital transportation, but who are, I know I always tell you guys this, who are missionaries, not mercenaries. The sales teams I run, I really want them to be mission driven. And yes, salespeople work for a commission, but I want them to be focused on that mission and driving that transformation of the customers. And at least for the little part of the planet we're in, that little sliver we deal with, we're changing the planet every day. And then that's when the value and the wealth comes to the salesperson, and the value and the success comes to the customer when we get that right. What I know from Herringbone is we get very tight, even on personality types that we're looking for people. So when I start a search with you guys, we really get down to the essence of what we're looking for in the individual. And a lot of time I'll be very specific, so you can't go back to your pool of candidates. You're looking for a very specific set and an experience set. Honestly, the best hire I have ever made has been with you guys.
Thanks, Patrick. That's good to hear. Very good.
I've had the joy and the luck to work with some of the big guys, the global branded ones. You know, having worked for SAP or Microsoft, sometimes it hasn't been my choice. And what I feel like when I work with them, often that first round is their stale stack.
Right. What do you mean by that, Patrick?
The also runs from their previous recruit campaigns that they've just done recently. So they haven't listened to a word I've said. They've just given me the, I know it's harsh, second place is first loser. They've just given me that, the stack of the also runs. And so I always feel like I have to push back immediately with them. And with Herringbone, I don't have that, hey, let's go through it once.
Good to know. So tell me, how did you get into what you do then? Let's go back.
I started in corporate finance and literally looked over at, I'll air quote now, the clowns and bozos at sales and said, I could do better myself, and really got attracted into the allure of going into sales. I've had a very traditional sales path. I started in consumer products with Procter & Gamble. So I've been to thousands of grocery stores selling cookies, peanut butter, shortening, diapers, and Pringles. I'll even drop that brand. And then have moved across to ERP and enterprise solutions. And I got in early on really with MRP and ERP in the dial-up days. And what I fell in love with is taking these big, gnarly problems and automating, simplifying, and building out the business processes, and then allowing humans to move up the stack to make the critical decisions. And it's been, especially when you're in tech sales, what you sell today will be automated in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and you'll be moving on or selling something else. So I like the idea. I feel like when you're selling business solutions or AI, you're really standing on shifting sands that are constantly moving, and you're almost like predicting future truths and bringing your sales team along for that journey and talking to customers where you're really discovering the leading edge.
From speaking to you, I think you've been in roles in all sorts of countries around the world, but where have these roles been based?
I started in Tallahassee, Florida. Almost have always had a international focus. I went to university in Madrid, and so my roles have been, even when I was a bag-carrying salesperson, very international focus. I have lived in India,
Right.
Indonesia. I spent over 5 years in Russia, and whilst in Russia, dealt a lot with Ukraine, Hungary, Poland, Czech, and really grew across Europe from Russia out. And then about 15 years ago, moved to London, spent a good time in London, then in Dubai, and also in Barcelona, where I'm at today. But I live in London right now.
So across that period, could you give us a sense of what you found to be the most challenging part of that role as a revenue leader in the tech space?
Focus, clarity, momentum.
Focus, clarity, and momentum.
Yeah. So when you run a sales team, most sales teams, if you do your job right and you're hiring missionaries, not mercenaries, and they're type A personalities, you're running an organization that's like a hyperactive toddler on a couple of Red Bulls. Okay. And your job is to make sure everyone is going the same direction. And that's where you have to be able to see at least 2 or 3 quarters in the future, and you're focusing the organization to execute on the quarter, and you have a clear message where everyone's going, so there's no confusion, and you're resolute because it's your confidence on that clarity that gets not only you, but the development team, the services team, the finance team on board on that mission. And then the other thing is just that momentum, because you got to balance the rigor of running a sales machine without killing the momentum. And so it's that real balance of, I demand absolute professionalism from the team. I want them to execute. I want them to be a machine, but I also want that momentum and mission and purpose really to drive them forward.
Because I think it's important. I think I totally agree. Getting that focus is key, but it's more than just the sales team. How do you get the company behind you? How do you get everybody else that participates in successful customer outcomes behind this? Because I believe that's the real trick here.
That's the real trick. And I'll be honest, I get it right 2 out of 3 times. Okay. And this is especially when you move into a CRO type role, you have this compass that you're driving the organization, you're hyper focused on it, and you're sort of predicting the future, and you have to have a clear vision of you saying, here's where we want to be in 3 years. So I go to the board and I say, here's our 3-year mission. I go to the product teams and I go to the delivery teams. Here's our 18-month mission. And I go back to my sales leadership and say, hey, sales leaders, this is where we want to be in 12 months. And when I go back to the individual sellers, this is where we want to be this month, because linearity is important. And it's to be able to keep all those focal points in line. And so you got to get that clarity of mission and really boil it down to even one sentence, and that could be a story around Industry 4.0 or digital twin or AI-enabled sales organizations. But you just keep that mantra, and then you take it forward 3 years, and then you really blow it back to, how do we execute this week? And you really have to sit down before you start that call and saying, who am I at that call? Am I the staff sergeant running the weekly forecast call? Or am I giving my 3-year view, talking about how we're going to triple the target addressable market over the next 3 years? Those are different conversations, and you can't confuse them, and you have to give clarity of message across, and consistency and clarity across that.
So tell me, building teams, absolutely key, absolutely massive. What advice have you got for me? What advice have you got for us around how we should go about that?
When you're running a sales organization right, 70%, 80% of what the team does is the team working together without your interference. So this really is about finding the missionaries and not the mercenaries. You hire mercenaries, you're constantly having to deal with a bunch of people. And there's an expression I always use to the sales is, alone we travel faster, together we travel further. Or another truism I say is, there's nothing you can't break that we can fix. Meaning that the team is absolutely important. That when you're solving problems for clients or bringing value to clients, it's really about how the team does it. Because even if you're an enterprise salesperson or beginning BDM, you need to reach out to someone in tech sales or a forward deploy engineer or someone in the services organization. You got to have that real sense of collaboration. And as a leader, I can't do it all. And so I really need to build that team. Now, how do I build teams? I believe ritual is important. So I start building in rituals. And a lot of that's just the sales cadence, the rhythm of the business. Monday morning, forecast call.
Yeah.
Monday afternoon, deal reviews.
Bang the drum.
Just banging the
Because I think
drum.
a lot of revenue leadership, sales leadership is pretty basic, boring stuff if you boil it down, right? You get a plan in place and you bang the drum. But
some people who've worked with me find it anally retentive. I publish a 12-week calendar at the beginning of every quarter, what the discussion points are going to be across the whole quarter. So on Monday of the 4th week, this is what I'm going to be looking at. So there are no surprises. So people understand that cadence. And really what I'm hoping is that it blows backward. If people know I'm going to be talking about slip deals from the previous quarter, first thing Monday morning in the new quarter, it means on Friday and on Saturday, the organization as a whole has already thought about this, and this just builds into the nervous system. And if people know at the end of the month, I'm going to be talking about the next quarter forecast and not about what we're closing the next week, then I'm hoping marketing and the other people in the organization know, hey, by the end of the month, any month, it's the 27th, I need to have my act together on what my Q+1 or my Q+2 forecast is, because it's coming. It's just in the nervous tissue.
When you're hiring, what are you looking for? Because you must be able to cut through this now, right?
I've introduced you guys to it, and I guess I'll be public about it. I even call it Pandomania. What I do is when I get that first round from you guys after you've already done, I don't have anyone else in my team do it. Almost anyone in the organization, I want to be the first point of contact. That first point of contact is maybe a 15-minute call, and it is zaniness, the call. And what I'm actually looking for is the ability to deal with ambiguity.
And it's a call by you, right? As the hiring manager.
It's a call by me. I start the call always the same way. And I'm smiling because well, you'll hear it out. I start the call the same way. I say, hi, I'm Patrick. This isn't an interview. Relax. I'm not going to interview you the next 15 minutes. I'm making sure Herringbone is doing their job correctly. I've given them a spec, and to save everyone's time, I'm just making sure you fit the spec. What have they described to you? So really, it is an interview question, and that's why I was, I didn't want to use the word scam because it sounds unethical. What I'm trying to do is, has the person done the homework? I expect them, just as I would, to research an hour or two.
Be all over it.
Yeah. So what have you learned? What has Herringbone told you? That's the first question. Is there clarity on what the role is? And we've written a job spec, and they're able to regurgitate what the job spec is to me and what the critical points are.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So that's 5 minutes in.
Let's just say what they play back's pretty spot on, right?
Okay, it's spot on. I will then, what I'm looking for is the ability to deal with ambiguity, because in the tech world, things change really fast. What I have on offer today may not be the role I have them in a quarter. It just happens. I'm looking for their ability to change. So what I will do at that point is I will have also read their resumes. I do not go into these cold. If I'm cold, I won't take the call. And what I'm looking for in their resume is where they've done something out of context. And what I mean by that is when they've had a huge change. Let's say they've gone from insurance tech sales to food product sales. I'm just looking for that gap. Why and what did they learn? The ability to deal with that ambiguity, the ability to make the change. If they have always been in, and if you've done your homework right as Herringbone in the search, if they've always been in the same industry, same similar role, they shouldn't be on that call. I really am looking for people who can deal with ambiguity and may not have the longest attention spans, that drive. And then the last 5 minutes of the 15-minute call, I'll ask them about a mistake. Tell me about a mistake you've made at work and what did you learn? And I'll be honest, I could give a toss on what the mistake is. What I'm gauging is, can they learn? If you look at then what happens in that 15 minutes is, did they do their homework? Can they deal with the ambiguity? And do they have a learning mindset? The next thing I do is when I do a recruit, I will create usually 5 questions. I won't ask them those 5 questions, but I will then, if they pass Pandomania or if they pass that initial screening, they then go to a panel call, 3 to 4 people. You know this from me. It's important that we move fast. So I get my teammates to do the follow-up interview in the next 5 days. And if my teammates can't get their act together in 5 days, then we move forward anyways. My teammates know when someone makes it through that I expect it done in 5 days, because it's only fair to the candidate. And also, best candidates get snapped up quickly, like good flats or good cars. So as soon as there's someone I think is a great candidate, I'll put them through, but I don't want to bias my team. So I make sure I don't put any notes. There are the 5 questions because it's important that we calibrate with each other. Each team member can have any opinion they want, but I do want some consistency in the questions. And we've already worked together in the past with the team members that everyone's comfortable with questions. So I'm not throwing any spanners at them in those questions. And then we get it back. What I don't do is then take a blended average. Like he was 63 in the review. She put 27 in the review, and that person was 82. And together, the blended average, I'm not looking for that. I'm literally looking for the commentary. And then at the bottom, I have no higher, higher, higher now. Do we move fast or not? And you've had this experience with me. Organizations I've worked on, if the team says fast hire, we'll hire in 24 minutes. We'll just go ahead and snatch up the candidate.
You know what you want, you know what you like, you know what the business needs, and you know what you're looking for, and that makes a massive difference. Not all our clients are in such a strong position in that respect, and it makes a big difference. It makes our role a lot easier. But tell me, you talk about candidates that have a learning mindset. So tell me a bit about what you've learned. What biggest lessons have you learned over the past 20, 25 years, whatever? Ones you can share anyway.
Yeah, no, I'll give you a really valuable lesson I got. I try to do one-on-ones with new hires and early talent. I always tell the new hire, now I do. This is the learning I'm getting to. It's a bit of wind up to get there. I learn more from them than they learn from me. So when I go into these kind of mentoring calls with the young talent, they think I'm an old sage. I'm not bald. I just shaved my head, by the way. They think they're learning from an old sage. I'm learning more from them. I almost feel like a vampire.
Reverse mentoring, isn't it?
I always get so much because a lot of times they're on the front line. They're the BDMs. They're making the calls. They have the hardest job in the company. They got to give me a 6-pack of calls before their first coffee. And so, they're really seeing it from the front end. So that takes me to the learning. I was doing a book club with some of the BDMs. And in the book club, we had a section on loyalty, and I said Gen Zs aren't loyal. And one of them got apoplectic. And typical Gen Z, challenged authority, don't know their place, and absolutely just let me have it. And they talked great sense. He said, we're immensely loyal. We're just not loyal to our companies. We're loyal to our networks. We're loyal to our profession. We're loyal to our learnings. But we're every bit as loyal to a company as the company is loyal to us. And all I could do is say, hats off. You are so right on that point. And especially when you've seen a lot of the changes in the tech industry the last 2 or 3 years, and how you hear Amazon laying people off by text. Yeah, they are loyal. They're not loyal to the company. And that means my learning is I feel like I'm Ryanair. And you're like, where's he going with the Ryanair comment? Is I know you had a choice when you chose to take your career with us. Thank you for making the choice with us today. In some ways, I could be 80s top down, the way I learned, but actually now we don't have that luxury. I was going to say privilege. It's not a privilege. We don't have that luxury to be top down. People choose to work for us, and we have to be grateful and pure pragmatic. If we're not grateful they're working for us, they're going to go somewhere else. You have to absolutely be authentically grateful.
You should be grateful, otherwise they shouldn't be in your team, right?
That's right. But it's easy in sales, where's your number? What did you do? What did you do for me today? You're only as good as your last sandwich, yada, yada, yada. But you got to take a step back and say, that person who's doing 300 outreaches for you this week, you have to be grateful for, and make sure you bring that authenticity. Because I don't think you had to in the past. You could bring fun, and there's an expression I don't like. And you hear, oh, we work hard, but we play hard. And, and that really just means we flog you and we drink a lot. I think those days are over.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no flogging, and we already see Gen Z's alcohol consumption is down.
I want you to think about the best revenue leader that you work with. What do you think made them so successful?
They had range. You could see them behave one way in a board meeting and another way with the team. When they walk into a room, everyone felt like they were being seen and heard. That when they went to him or her, that their points were valid and important. I'm not saying they were agreed to. Almost, it kind of counters with authenticity, almost a politician. That when they came in, they owned the room, the team, the customer, the colleagues, management felt like this person had confidence that was infectious. Another thing, and this is something, I have to work on, and a weakness of my own, is they responded well under pressure. So when the pressure came down, they wouldn't buckle under that pressure. They may react, they may drive the team, but you really felt like they were giving you the ground cover. I would see someone walk out, and I knew they had just had a proper shellacking in a boardroom, and they came out, and then they didn't flog the team. I always had really strong respect, saying that person is giving us ground cover. Big term, but wisdom.
You said that's a weakness of yours. How do you manage that?
Take a breath. Go walk around the block.
Because you're a high-tempo guy, right? So I can't imagine you sort of meditating in the courtyard.
I'll tell you what's funny is I meditate every morning.
Do you now?
Oh yeah, that's about the only thing that keeps me on the track. I can really tell the difference of my day if I don't meditate or if I do meditate.
And how long have you been meditating for?
15, 20 years.
Really?
Won't say absolutely 100% regularly, but what will happen is I'm like, oh man, Pando's coming off the rails. I see a lonely meditation pillow. I have a little buckwheat meditation pillow I keep on the edge of my office, and I'm like, meditation pillow seems really, really lonely. It hasn't been sat on in a bit, and I'll start meditating again. When I meditate almost about the same thing every day, and that's the roles I play during the day. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a mentor, I'm a cheerleader. And I guess it goes back to what I value. I didn't think about it until right now, but what I value in leaders is having that range and the perspective of you don't know what's going to hit your desk next.
Yeah.
And then I have to quote the great teachings of Justin Bieber when he was arrested for urinating in a bucket and yelling at the police. He came back the next day and he said, I apologize. I reacted instead of responding. And even though you maybe question the source, but I thought that was a lovely line that I really think about when all of a sudden the moment overtakes. React instead of respond. And something I share with my colleagues and other salespeople is if you become bigger than the message, there's a problem. And this is responding instead of reacting. And another great boss of mine put it, there's nothing you're going to do the next minute that's going to impact your career forever, except a bad response. You respond in the next minute or the next 10 minutes or the next hour, maybe even the next day. The only outcome is bad. So take a breath. Take that 3-year view, take that 18-month, peel it back, unpack it, and understand no matter how big the transgression or the problem or the heat, really in a month it's going to be funny, and really take that viewpoint.
Consistency. I think consistency in a leadership position is massive. It's something that I always used to concentrate on, is try and be consistent regardless of what's going on around you. Because people look to you as a particularly in a sort of CRO role or something similar. They really look to you. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're okay.
I can feel it sometimes when I walk out of a meeting room. People are looking up, and I'm like, it's important
100%.
That I exude a infectious confidence, even if I don't know what the answer is. But right now, and so people can stay focused and have clarity, I need to make sure that I bring that to the team.
What's next for Pandomania? What's next? Can you share?
I can share a bit. If you look at where I've gone, I've been ERP, connected solutions, SaaS solution, enterprise AI. So next is going to be very large AI, enterprise AI, something also called sovereign AI. as we've seen AI grow and these data centers grow, and it's in the news that there's not enough energy to power all these data centers, people are waking up to the fact that with the power of Microsoft and the power of AWS, that there's a lot of data processing and a lot of servers being built out in Reston, Virginia. And really the rest of the world is catching up. So I'm going to be enabling and working with the rest of the world to not only catch up, but to lead from front.
Sounds exciting. So Patrick, what have we not spoken about that I should have asked you about?
Yeah, I have kind of a counter-popular idea right now. I'm a big believer in back to office. I know you hear Amazon back to office and Google back to office and other companies saying, hey, if you don't go back to office, you're fired. So this isn't an Elon Muskian thing. Okay. What this really is I feel like we're losing a generation of workers and sellers to their mother's and father's basement, and that lack of interaction and that lack of being in a place and building that esprit de corps just isn't going to happen through Zoom. In a Zoom meeting, people are doing other things, and there's not that accountability, but also that joy. And so we got to figure out, how do we get people back? And the way I learned sales, there was always some battle-hardened, hard smoking, they smoked in the office, hard smoking person that I just heard in the background 3 or 4 years straight. I just heard him on the phone speaking. He wasn't coaching. He wasn't telling me anything. I just heard the conversation. So then when I got on the phone, I had learned through osmosis. You don't learn from osmosis. When the call is over, you hang up. We need to get people back together. Ultimately, sales is about people, stupid. We got to get people back together, the teams back together. And I don't mean to have a cudgel and threaten people back to the office or do it as a way to streamline organizations. It really is about the bringing humanism into this. And as AI comes in and starts automating more and more, the value is going to be how humans work together.
And I guess it's getting that message across to individuals that are perhaps not inclined to come in and helping them see the value. Because for me, I completely agree.
It's a hard conversation. And so when I do my first outbound call, I talk to people who are saying, hey, I want to work remotely. I tell them point blank, the flavor we offer is not a remote flavor. I explain to them why, and half the time doesn't work. But I've gotten several really good candidates to become full-time employees, and I've gotten them over the transom talking about the importance of working together as a team and hearing each other talk, having lunch and breaking bread. It is possible to turn people. The other thing is, if you're clear about it, I've also had other people I've talked to saying, God, I want to come to the office. I am going stir crazy. I've been alone for 5 years. I spent 3 years in university remotely. I went to a full-time university remotely. My first 2 jobs have been remote. If half of us meet our future spouse or our future partner at work, how are we going to meet them at work if we're not in the office? I don't think we're doing a favor to our younger employees by keeping them remote. We have to be human.
In a past life, during COVID, I hired a number of people, and I was pretty sure there was some talented individuals. They were fairly sort of junior recruits, and we onboarded them during COVID. We felt like we had the right systems and processes in place. We felt we had a really good understanding of what we should be tracking, what we should be measuring. But do you know what? Whatever reason, my success rate was significantly lower than it would normally be. And I'm not saying, when you're hiring sales individuals, look, if we get much better than 1 in 2, we're probably happy, right? And it just wasn't working. And I think that was partly due to the fact nobody was going into the office. All of this was remote. And I think if they'd been in and around the business, we would have been more successful.
Yeah. The other thing that happens is decision-making slows down, because you don't have people that just stop in the hallway and say, hey, I have this problem. Oh, this is how I sorted it out. Boom. Decision made. For some reason, when we get to Zoom and in this medium where we're 2D reflection of ourselves, we tend to put off the decision. We tend to be friendly, cordial, orderly. The meeting has a beginning, medium, and end, and then let's take that offline, as opposed to, for some reason, the imperative for action isn't there. I've seen it also in sales engagements, because when COVID came in, loads of companies started buying procurement software, and now we're going through hurdles that some developer wrote probably in their basement, somewhere on the planet, of what a procurement process should be, as opposed to, and I can't even say the olden days. I'm saying 2020, where you would just walk to the client's office and say, sign a contract or I'll cry. And you don't have that anymore. You can't park in someone's boardroom and say, let's get this done. Let's walk people through and get this agreed to. Now it's like, oh, we'll get back to you. I need to get 6 signatures in the procurement system. If you don't know better, you end up working in a system like that. We got to just get people back. I don't think the answer is saying you have to be here 5 days a week. I don't have the solution, because I want to be flexible, because I like working from home too, but I don't want us to say you have to be here on a Monday and a Friday and then pick the other 2 days. I don't know. It's got to be something organic. I don't have the answer there.
Well, look, thanks, Patrick. Always a pleasure. And thanks for being such a great client. We look forward to working with you again sometime with a sovereign AI opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be picking up the phone and giving you guys a call.
Man, that was awesome. Appreciate it.